Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Finish Line, Navigating the Journey After Residency, the podcast that helps physicians just emerging from medical training, as well as those who are themselves down the road in their practices to navigate those paths that we all encounter, and a path that emerges with self-awareness, core values, life balance, a path that leads to thriving and not just surviving. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Sherman, pediatrician, physician coach, consultant, and retreat facilitator. And today I'm joined by Dr. Amna Shabbir. I'm so happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Sure. So Dr. Shabbir is a passionate advocate for physician well-being. She empowers high achievers to create sustainable well-being. And Dr. Shabbir is dual certified in geriatrics as well as internal medicine. And she's a master certified life coach and a national board certified health and wellness coach. So she's double certified as a coach too, through the Duke Integrative Medicine. Founder and CEO of the Early Career Physicians Institute and Amna Shabbir Wellness Coaching. She also serves as an ambassador for the Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, advocating for healthcare workers' mental health. Amna's a super mom of two young girls, a good friend of mine, a fellow physician coach who's very active at trying to support physicians across our country and internationally. And I'm really pleased to have Amna with us today.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Dr. Sherman. I am so excited to be here.
Great. All right, well, let's jump right into it, Amna. I know you, and I know the kind of work that you do and how passionate you are with everything that you do. But why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you ended up along this path?
All of our paths, I think the most impactful journeys that are forged in times of darkness and despair. It's almost, you have to have that calling, you have to have that rock bottom moment, and then you have to climb your way up. And there is no one moment that is like that, because life is a series of synchronous moments in which you'll hit rock bottom, climb your way up, and keep going. And so for me, where I find myself right now, being a physician was very integral to that. And I, after residency, started working as a primary care physician, and I thought that that was going to be it. I'm going to do primary care, I'm going to retire, and then that's it. But I burnt out in the first couple of months after training. I was extremely shocked at my personal failure, air quotes, at burning out and feeling the way I did feel. So fast forward, I continued to practice primary care for about 4 years. All the while gaslighting myself to believe that there was something completely wrong with me, not the system. And then eventually you have that rock bottom moment. One day there were lots of tears involved, and I wanted to walk away completely from medicine. But I asked myself what still gave me joy in practicing medicine. For me, that moment was this recognition that I actually really enjoyed taking care of older adults. So my recipe for burnout healing was to go back for more medical training. I then pursued a fellowship in geriatrics.
Yeah.
And I find myself where I am right now.
Wow. Okay. So the first thing I want to ask you is that you said that right away, right out of residency, and I'm kind of imagining listeners that are just recently out of residency. And then you said, boy, within a couple of months, you felt like, boy, I was already burned out. And then you said 4 years later. And that's the thing that I really want to focus on first. And you say 4 years later, and just to point out how even though well, let me ask, did you realize at the time that you were burned out, or did you think, well, yeah, what was going through your mind as you started this career that you had spent so much time, money, effort, everything on, and then all of a sudden you said, oh my gosh, where am I?
I knew what I was getting myself into better than other medical trainees did. I was a primary care track resident during internal medicine training. I knew it wasn't going to be rainbows and sunshine, but I did know how hard it was actually going to be. And I also never accounted for the fact that all the other aspects of my life were happening simultaneously. I was the mom to then one girl. She was an infant. And just that time was so exhausting. So my first symptom was actually just exhaustion. I was just tired all the time. And what do you do when you're tired? You try to figure it out and try to doctor yourself. Do I need supplements? Do I need something else? And then, of course, like something is wrong with me. Clearly, everyone around me has it all together because that's what they're projecting. I look at my colleagues, my senior colleagues who have been working for years in these circumstances in this environment. I tell myself I'm not a special snowflake, and I get up and I go to work every day. Except one of the hallmark symptoms I was having was morning dread. I would sit in
Mm,
my car. I had listened to many podcasts by that time, trying to like pump myself up, motivational quotes, bring it on, everything and anything that I could. And those voices helped me. And that's why I really believe in the magic of podcasting. But then afterward, it was just it dragging your body out of a car when everything in you is just like, can I just sleep? Can I not face the mountain of paperwork that's going to be waiting for me, or my in basket that's I'm going to just open it up and it's going to explode right in front of my eyes? It's just exhausting.
mm. Yeah. So this idea that, very often in the physician wellness, well-being world, we hear this word resilience, and how very often we just need to be more resilient. And I just think it's fascinating that what's the first thought that comes to mind as you start to feel these emotions of dread you mentioned, and what is it that I have to do? Work harder. I've got to figure this out on my own. I've got to, I'm a resilient person. And the reality is you're tremendously resilient. And yet still this kind of gets to you. And it's not so much a matter of not being resilient enough. If it's not being resilient enough, what do you think it is that hits physicians when they hit that reality of practice like you did and say, what's going on?
Dr. Sherman, it's incredibly isolating. And it's loneliness within loneliness because we're living behind a facade of perfectionism. And
Mm,
that's what's happening. Because come July 1st, after graduation, I'm now in attending. I should have the answers to all my questions. I should have my personal life figured out. I should be exercising. I should, as a women physician, also be showing up 1,000% in my house with my motherly duties. I should, when I go to work, be an extremely compassionate physician. I should keep shutting on and on. The tyranny of shoulds. And that's happening. And so there is a facade and then there is reality. And we're so alone in that space in the middle. There's personal factors at play, and of course institutional factors wherever we find ourselves after training. But how can we bridge that loneliness that is being created by these narratives that are being constantly perpetuated from perfectionism and never enoughness? When are we going to feel complete and whole, and that it's okay and safe to ask for help? It's safe to say that I'm tired, I need to sleep. It's safe to say that uh, it is extremely inhumane for us to see a certain number of patients. And I was telling myself, and this is where the gaslighting part comes in,
mm.
that I know many of my colleagues have it way worse, and I'm not there. And so I should basically just suck it up and
Mm.
get up, go work, go work. And that is a very lonely place to be in.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. And I imagine that during residency with all of the training, there is that finish line, there is that end. If I just suck it up, if I deal with these obnoxious attendings and residents that are abusing me and making me feel so horrible about what I don't know instead of telling me what I do know, somehow I'll make it to the next step. But when you found yourself there, and then you said kind of the next step was I'll kind of push through. 4 years later, you decide, well, let me do geriatrics. If you can think about that moment in your career, what was it that you thought this might be the answer to this sense of dread or burnout or misplacement, whatever it was?
It's this profound sense of loss and heartbreak is what I equated to. When
Hmm.
I burnt out, also simultaneously suffered from a broken heart because
Hmm.
what I wanted to do, I just couldn't. I just didn't have the capacity to care for my patients the way I wanted to and to care for my own self the way I wanted to, get my basic needs met as a human. As an intellectual, as a mother, I just couldn't. And so, what do you do when you work so hard towards a specific goal and you get there and you arrive and the destination is definitely not what you had hoped for? So, I think that was for the first and real, you ask me, what's your symptom of burnout? Yes, there's dread, there's exhaustion, but it's this deep ache in your heart that you work so hard to get to this point. And so what else is that? That's heartbreak. That's the pain. And that's loss that I am going to have to let go of a certain identity. You know, people are walking away from medicine and early career physicians are walking away from their first jobs, by the way, in less than 2 years from their first job. The data is showing us that it's drastically dropping, and they're not doing it just for fun. They
Hmm.
feel this profound guilt and sense of loss and shame and all the complex emotions that come with it. And so for me, I had that moment to preserve myself. I was either going to walk away completely from medicine. I was feeling in that sense of loss, also like a loss of purpose. What am I even doing? And this feeling
Hmm.
like what I do does not matter. I don't feel like I'm making an impact. What is it that I'm doing? And so when I started to do this work that is surrounding purpose and meaning and what still gave me joy in medicine, what were the types of patients that still reignited? I loved all my patients. Like this does not mean if you're between 18 to 65, I didn't enjoy working with you. I just felt so much more connected to older adults. And I just felt that I felt more purpose and
Yeah.
meaning. And so
Yeah.
I really leaned into that.
Yeah. So you use the words purpose, meaning, you connection. These were the things that it sounds like you were really looking for in your profession as an internist and as a geriatrician. Um, when you finished that fellowship training in geriatrics, what was your next step in your career? And yeah, well, let me ask you this first. What was your mental state at that time? Where were you emotionally? And where were you in your life as a mom, as a partner, as, all these things? And what was the mindset at that point in your life?
That's an excellent question because we believe in such linear journeys, right? Residency is finished. I started being an attending, boom, burnout, fellowship. Fellowship is done. What's next? So in parallel, what was happening throughout my entire life, and I'll go back to when I was 13 years old, but I'll fast forward pretty quick. When I was 13, I was reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and I was reading all this literature surrounding positive
Just like
psychology.
every 13-year-old does, right? Yeah. Give
And
me that. Where's that
so
copy
that
book?
So then I went to my mom and I said, I really like this life optimization and how can we take our life to the next level. So during my entire life, from that age onwards, I've been consuming books that fall into that category, which
Hmm.
is what really helped me in times when I was really low as a medical student, as a resident, even as a fellow and forward. And so some people say they fell into coaching, whereas I was trying to look for coaching when it wasn't really prominently available everywhere, especially physician coaching. So my destiny and my journey towards becoming a coach and helping people optimize their life in the capacity that I am actually started way before my journey through medicine as I look back. And it's given me joy and purpose. And what what essentially finishing fellowship did for me, and even at that time, it there is another identity shift that I went through.
Hmm.
As fellowship was finishing, I asked myself this question. Well, the only morally superior way to practice medicine is to be in academics.
Yeah.
And I told myself that. I believed it. I'm a byproduct of a dual physician household. That's what you do. So I went home from fellowship one day. It was our call used to be, you have to be present on the floors in person, which after being an attending, not doing that for 4 years was interesting going back. So I go home and by then I have two daughters. Both of them are there. My husband looks disheveled. He is himself an entrepreneur. He's building whatever he's building, and being very supportive in his capacity as that he can. We got married right after medical school, so he's been supporting me through the whole journey, and I'm so grateful
Wow.
for that.
Yeah.
But I never asked him, how is who I am and how is my burnout affecting him and how is my mental state affecting him? Because I went through postpartum depression twice. Postpartum depression, the second time, melted in with burnout, which made it way worse. Not a good combination. So that day, I remember after coming from call and looking just at the state of my house and my children and my husband, I said, what if I just took a step back and scaled things down a little bit? And that was one question I asked him, and just looking at the way things were going.
Mm.
And the second was, I just felt so exhausted and still so burnt out.
Mm.
I felt like my fellowship was healing in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It kept me in medicine, and I still continue to practice clinically part-time
Mm-hmm.
while working on all my other projects, including advocacy and coaching. It helped me, but I just was not ready to become still a full-time practicing physician. And I felt like such a failure for that, Dr. Sherman. Felt
Yeah.
like such a failure that I can't stay in full-time academics, that I am leaving that. And I am such a failure for going clinically part-time. I believe I went through a second period, what I call this feeling of loss and grief, crying a lot in the parking lot in my car for
Mm-hmm.
the following 6 months when I made that decision. And I know that I'm not alone. I have heard this from so many other early career physicians who just, when they have to try and create a more creative way of practicing medicine and not the traditional linear line, and they try to honor all these other parts of them, the parts
Yes.
that need help, the part that's a mother, the part that's a spouse, the part that needs to go to the doctor, which was also happening simultaneously. Like I needed
Wait a
so
second.
many
Doctors
doctor's
need to go to
appointments.
doctors? You got to kid me.
Yeah. So it was all happening and it came together. And I'm so glad now that I look back. Now I look back at
Yeah.
the human who is grieving, leaving full-time practice at that time. I am so grateful that I did. I'm so grateful in so many different aspects, but my body was taking a hit. My
Yeah.
mind was taking a hit. Everything was coming crashing down.
Wow. I just, want to point out this idea of living a reflective life, of being reflective from the time you were 13 years old. Come on. That's like unusual. But I would say that it is essential to develop some reflective practice, whatever that is, as early on as possible, whatever it is. And I really appreciate you emphasizing that, because I do think that you were aware, and I'm curious, and I want to ask you this. It sounds like you yourself brought you to this place of asking your husband's input, of questioning what path you were taking. Was What was it that gave you that courage to really make those steps, to change, to say, I'm going to practice part-time, I'm going to do this other activity that I'm passionate about? And yeah, what brought you that courage?
Courage is such a good word because it did take a lot of courage. There were multiple factors involved, but the first step was asking for help. And it's not me. I'm not doing this all alone. And I am not going to be the one, the first person I asked for help was actually my primary care physician. And I was really low with postpartum depression.
Mm.
I pretty much was not honest on the PHQs that were handed to me postpartum. So she was the person who helped me. And full irony of that was that later she burned out and left the practice, and she completely went a personality change. But I'm so grateful to her because she was so tired later on. But coming back to where I was, my first step was asking for help. And it started by asking for help from my primary care physician. I did get counseling. I was getting coached. I'm so glad I was getting coached pre-pandemic. So I was ready. And when I actually was making this change as a fellow to invest in coaching, it's a big investment. I'm so glad I made that investment. everything shifted in my life because a physician coach was able to objectively point out to me that it is okay and normalize what I was going through, not gaslight me, show me objectivity, help me create tools, help me negotiate a great contract, help me walk into interviews with such confidence. So there was a journey of clarity that was happening. And so that is the reason there was internal reflection. It's a process. If anybody says, here, go do this one thing and you're going to be fixed, they're lying. It is a process. It's a journey. And I invite everyone to go on that journey to listen inwards. And because of medical education, up until that point, then it was just like, go, go, go. Like you get up, you go. So all the quotes that I would read, the books I would read, it was almost that I was then gaslighting myself from all these things
Yeah.
that I had learned. I can do more. Have a growth mindset. Don't have a fixed mindset. Get up, go see all those patients, go do your work. And that's wrong. And I'm so grateful that my own coach was able to add calm and clarity. And so the day I actually truly saw my husband and saw my children and saw the state of my home, it was that inward moment you're of reflection when you're like, okay, it's okay maybe to slow down for just 1 second and ask this question: is this working out? Is this okay for me?
Wow. Okay. So you had counseling, you had a coach, you reached out for help, and that's something that you say is really against our physician culture to actually go out and reach out for help. So crazy how we who send everyone else for consults for everything, for behavioral health, for consultations for cardiology and neurology, everything else, we ourselves think that we can just handle it ourselves because that's the message that we were sent. And yeah, what's wrong with you? Why can't you work full time and be on call, raise two kids, take care of your house, all these different things? I just have to put in a little comment here that we male physicians have no clue what women physicians go through. No idea. And I just feel like um, I don't know. I could go on. That's probably another episode. We'll talk about that later. I want to keep going right here now to what you do now and how you have found your home in your own life experience and what is it that where is it that you are channeling your energy now?
I love that question. And I just want to make a brief comment to what you had shared earlier is like, we have to have all the answers. It's not just in medicine. We also live in this tremendously individualistic society where you're supposed to pull yourself up by the bootstrap and then we'll all applaud for you. I think that is such a lie. So asking for help is critical. And and that's what really segues nicely into my purpose as well. Between all of this, and I have been doing this has been reflection more happening with my coach over the last 6 to 8 months regarding my personal journey and story and what keeps coming up over and over again. And because it's so pertinent to everybody else, I would like to share it, is this obsession with perfectionism that we all have in medicine. And if I can continue to work and undo that in any shape or form, I would love for that to be my purpose. And that's what I'm focusing my energy towards. It's because perfectionism, in and of itself, is what we are expecting as a society, as a culture. And then you take something like medicine and the expectations that are on physicians. We are creating impossible environments for people to ask for help and impossible environments for people to live up to the expectations that we're putting on them. And people talk about, there's adaptive perfectionism, healthy one, and the maladaptive perfectionism. I like one of the amazing researchers in perfectionism is Thomas Curran, and he makes this argument that there's no such thing as maladaptive perfectionism, which it's just one other way of saying that you're never going to be enough. It's not about high standards. It's about never going to be enough. Now you take this statement and you can apply it towards medicine. And it just keeps coming up and showing up as true. So, for example, I'll throw in some of the traits of perfectionism, and
Yeah.
I invite you to look at them through the lens of
All right.
medical
I got my
education.
pen and go ahead. You write it down. I'm ready.
All or none thinking. According to a perfectionist, everything can be categorized as either perfect or a failure. How many times in the hospital were you told this? Unrealistic standards, that's another one. Judge everything and everyone through these standards, and everything else is almost imperfect. How have attendings made you feel that way? And those attendings didn't come up with this themselves. This is generational trauma. They were handed this concept down by somebody else. Worrying about failure, that's number 3. Strive for excellence, but become fearful of what's going to happen when you fail. And so you have to have this facade that everything is okay, which is what happened with me. I am perfect. I am good. I am not suffering. I am not depressed. I know the answers to everything. And it prevents you from asking for help. Here's the 4th one, tunnel vision. You continue to work towards a very specific goal and you forget about everything else that's happening in your life. Again, I'll give my example. Not really taking a look at the person who's living next to me. How are they looking?
Yeah.
But I'm consistently just focused on that.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
got a couple
Keep
more.
going.
Focusing on outcomes, that's another one. So we're so focused on results that everything else is disregarded. So how do we compensate and celebrate our clinicians? We'll look at scores, right? And if those scores aren't perfect, for example, patient satisfaction scores or cancer screening scores, I know I cringe a little when I put the both in the same category, but they're still numbers. So you could have done a great effort all year long, and then you're down by 0.00 something, and they're going to hold back your compensation, your bonus. We're strictly just focusing on outcomes. Excessive criticism is another one. You set unrealistic standards for yourself and for others, and then you have daily beatdowns when you don't hit that outcome. Here's another one. The last 2 that I'll mention is inability to deal with criticism. So there's excessive criticism, and then there's this inability to deal with it. And people who are perfectionists become defensive instead of openly receiving criticism because they're so afraid of what's going to happen in their own minds, right? And afterwards, procrastination and avoidance. What we're going to try and do is never going to be good enough. So we're so afraid of failing, we're not even going to try. And the example for that is a lot of times, I will say this to early career physicians, they come to me with procrastination. And procrastination isn't the problem. The problem is the lack of self-compassion and perfectionism. So just slowing down and staying there. So if I can continue to work with individuals and help them become anti-perfect, I think that would be such an amazing contribution to medicine. And I will add this one last statistic, which is concerning. Socially prescribed perfectionism in young adults has risen by 33% over the last 2 decades, which is a lot. And these are the young adults that are then becoming early career physicians, there are your medical trainees. So it's not a you thing. Perfectionism is not a you problem. It's a societal issue. It's mass media, everything, every bit of marketing dollars that are being thrown at you to sow discontent in your life. And you take somebody who has these traits. We know high achievers in medicine. Physicians are that vulnerable population. And we take them and we put them in medicine. We systematically dehumanize them through a set of exposures that happen to them, all the while other things are happening in parallel in the larger macrocosm, including macroeconomics and the marketing and all of this discontent that is in them. And so what we get is a byproduct, somebody who thinks that they have to have it all together, they have to look perfect, and that they're actually never going to be enough. And they want to do more and achieve their way out of their misery. And it's never going to happen that way. And this is tied to poor mental health outcomes.
Yeah.
This is tied to, we have actually data that suggests that it's tied to suicidality. And,
there's that, the ultimate, right, is that you can never reach perfectionism because after all, we are human beings. We are humans like everyone else, even though we're not really told that so much. We're kind of superhuman. However, our bodies don't lie, right? And eventually, if you get to that point where you see no way out, then that is the answer. And I think that idea of suicidality is something that is is a reality. It's a reality that happens, and I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we say that, yeah, I got to that point, I've gotten to that point, and I've gotten beyond that point, and I've moved on with some help by getting help. So I would love for you now to give me that prescription for perfectionism. So you've told us all that those elements and all those things. You, as a physician coach, if somebody who's in their early career, they found themselves and they're kind of like waking up with that dread of going in every day, or they're getting that feeling that I just got to work harder. It's all my fault. I just am not strong enough. I'm not working harder enough. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, Dr. Shabbir appears to you as your coach. What is your answer?
At the risk of promising miracles, I'll
Ah, here we
start.
go.
The first thing is rest.
Hmm.
The first thing is your physiologic needs as a human being. And we forget, like you said, nobody ever told us that we're also humans. And as obvious as it sounds, I'm so glad more people are saying and talking about this, but we don't talk enough. So the first thing you need is actually to sleep, to rest, take a day off and sleep. Take a week off, take a month off if you can, take a sabbatical, add rest. Rest is necessary. We cannot start contemplating and reflecting in a tired mind. It's amazing when you get some uninterrupted sleep, you get clarity. And so the first thing is always sleep and rest. Add moments of white space.
Take care of
This,
those basic needs, basic human needs. Yeah.
absolutely. Like, listen in to yourself. I'm not going to tell you to start journaling if you haven't slept. I mean, come on. The second thing is look at the facts. I believe in facts, and facts are powerful. Facts prevent you from doing what I was doing to myself.
Hmm.
I'm so grateful to my coach for helping me look at my own facts. What are the facts here? How many hours a week are you working? What is the help that you have in your life? What is going on in your life? And write neutral facts. Okay, I slept 4 hours of interrupted sleep. Children were all over me. I don't know what happened. That's a fact. That's a fact. Interrupted 4 hours sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I came to work at X amount of time and I left at X amount of time. So look at the facts. Audit your life. What's
What's your
happening?
what's your current reality? Yeah.
It's
Then
so
what?
important to know that. It's so important to know that. And the third thing I would say, and I will stop at the third thing because some data suggests that if you give more than 3 steps in one sitting, it's less likelihood for application. So I'm going to stick with the third step, which is the most important step. Ask for help.
Hmm.
Ask for help. And because my most favorite act that has always helped me was self-compassion. And
Ah.
it's like I was allergic to self-compassion, and which is the ultimate antidote for perfectionism. I was allergic to it because I was so afraid that if I spoke kindly to myself, I will become complacent. I'll be kicked out. My motivation will die if I just, looked at myself and just spoke to myself in half a decent way, the way I would speak to another person. The most self-compassion thing that you can do is to ask for help. And what does that look like for you? Do you need to pick up the phone and talk to that friend you've lost touch with, but who actually knows you? Can we start there, maybe? Have a real conversation with a real friend? Do you need to talk to your parents? Do you need to talk to your spouse? Do you need to talk to someone who's just knows you in a very different light? Or can you not talk to any of those humans because you don't feel safe? And do you need to talk to somebody in a more professional setting? Do you need to talk to a peer, a colleague? Do you think that it's time to talk, or you need to talk to your doctor? You just need to talk to your primary care physician. And if you don't have one, get one. Get your annual physical done. You also have a body that needs screenings and tests and labs and lipids and all those things. So it starts from asking for help. Do you need counseling? Do you need therapy? Or do you know that maybe it's something very specific? And that's why I almost feel like physician coaching falls in a very unique branch, because you get to have somebody who's trained in a very specific way. So maybe it's just that you need to talk to somebody like that.
Hmm.
Here's what not to do.
Hmm.
Don't not do anything.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Not making a choice is also a choice. You're
Yeah.
choosing to be there. You have inherent autonomy. Exercise that. The system continuously makes you feel like you're powerless. Don't don't do that. Take action. Here's another thing not to do. Don't just run away. Changing your job, going to another job, and taking the same skill set, same attitude, same situation happening at home without taking stock of where you're at is going to be very detrimental.
Hmm.
Here's another thing not to do, which I did, and it was not effective. That is, don't start taking on more roles. I thought that if
Hmm.
I only volunteered for more
Yep.
work, that's going to make me feel better, more purpose. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
It sounds like what you're describing a lot that I hear is trying to reach outside of yourself, the don'ts, reaching outside of working it out from within with people's help and but trying to reach for the next thing that will fill you up and plug that hole, whatever it is that you're feeling deficient at. But truly trying to search from within with someone's help, often because we're blinded, we've got these blinders on sometimes. So that's a fascinating, like, I love the do's and the don'ts. So I want to ask you this one very specific question, and that is, if I'm a physician and I'm finding myself kind of confused, I put in all this effort, all this time, and yet this is not the, like, heavens have opened and I've discovered that this is the be all end all. I've finally become the physician I've wanted to be, and everything should be wonderful at this point. And now I'm confused. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out, do I need to reach out for therapy, or do I need to reach out for a coach? Because we physicians are not told, kind of like, what is this coaching thing all about? Is this kind of woo woo, or what is this thing about? So can you, I know I'm a physician coach, but I would love to hear from you specifically. And everyone has a different approach, a different personality. But if I'm trying to decide what kind of help I need, especially that decision between therapy or coaching, do you have any advice there?
I'll go back to step number 3 from before, which is to ask for help. If you start, so we love, and this is where perfectionism comes back in, we love to know all the answers before we take that step. And so you're feeling awful and you're feeling miserable and you don't know where to start. Just start.
Hmm.
So even if you talk to a coach and even if you talk to a therapist, they're going to help you break down your individual situation so that one session will add clarity to what you want to do or what you need. So if you listen to this episode and you're still not clear, that's okay. That's part of being human. And you don't have to have all the perfect answers by the end of this episode. Just ask for help. Everyone, the physician coaching community is wonderful. Many individuals offer complimentary strategy sessions. Schedule a session, just talk it out. That's just blanket. Take that with you. The way I explain to my clients is, and I go through an intake questionnaire, Dr. Sherman. I know you also ask questions and kind of narrow it down. And I create this. I'm trying to find a sticky where my sticky went, but basically a very simple post-it note, and I'll draw a circle and I'll write you where you are right now in the middle. And then I'll put the past and the future in different bubbles. So if there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed that are stemming from the past, or you have unhealed trauma or something
Mm.
very significant, and you would like to work on that, and we have to go back. So I draw an arrow for past focus healing and everything that's happened in the past that's driving right now. You need to go and talk to a therapist. I'm not trained in that. And you need to have clinical help. And I always start with stating that coaching is not clinical. It is an evidence-based modality. We have randomized controlled trials that it definitely helps, but it's not clinical. So it is not what it's not. And then I'll point to that circle where you are right now to where you want to get into the future. It's a very specific goal, such as I want to be done with burnout. Let's work on moral injury. Let's work on this perpetual poor self-esteem, confidence, something very like almost tangible. But when you talk, I don't know how to set boundaries. What is it? So when you look at goals, or it could be health and wellness goals, I want to lose weight, I want to exercise more, I want to have a healthier relationship with my body, whatever that is. So that's goal focus. So where you are right now in the present to where you want to get into the future, that's where coaching helps you. Doesn't mean that you only have to get therapy and not get coaching. Oftentimes, physicians don't want to be labeled as they're getting therapy or counseling. So, but they really want to get coaching. And I think it's great that we get the process at least of talking and getting help started. But you have to recognize, and let's call a spade a spade. When you need therapy, you need specific deep work like that, you need to go there. And what helps is a couple of sessions, I'll have folks actually share that they've had the sessions, and then I'll start coaching in parallel, which is a wonderful way, And sometimes people have been having successful relationships with their therapists for years, and that's wonderful. And they want to work on a very specific goal. And here we are. That was a really long answer to that question.
No, I love that answer. And also, I know for you as well as for me as a physician coach, if we come across a client that we really feel would benefit from deeper therapy with someone who has those special skills. My wife is a clinical psychologist, and whenever I come across a client that's like, wow, this is like, you need to go next door or upstairs, wherever her office is, and I've been in therapy since I was like right out of practice. So for me, I'm someone who's a big fan of both coaching as well as therapy. So coaches are trained to let you know if they believe that you could benefit from therapy. So that's something also. But I love the idea. Just get some help. Just reach out. If you can get over that hurdle, that's the first step to keep going to wherever you're going to end up. Really appreciate that. Okay, so now here are the last questions I want to ask you. These are kind of questions I ask all of my guests. The first is, if you somehow were able to go back to your you choose the stage, medical student, residency, fellowship, wherever you were, and you have one piece of advice that you would like to give your former self, what would it be?
I'm trying to go back as far back as I can.
Pick whatever stage you want. Yeah.
I'll go back to my 16-year-old self.
Oh, there. I love that.
Yeah. And I would tell her that it's going to be okay. I mean, you're going to get where you're going to get. And I know that it's maybe easy for me to say this right now, but stop being so hard on yourself. Just, if you could just dial down the inner critic just a little bit. And I know I'm not alone. All high achievers that I coach, that includes physicians, especially early career physicians, their inner critic is so loud. It's screaming at you. It's deafening everything out. And it's a drill sergeant. For me, that was it. I had to do my work was my push-ups. So if I could go back in time, I would just tell myself that it's okay. You can tone it down. There's actually evidence and data suggesting that if you become more self-compassionate, maybe you wouldn't burn out that quickly. And, I'm still very grateful for the journey that I have been on. Would I go back and change anything? No, I wouldn't. I completely, even the times where I burned out and I felt awful, it gave me purpose. It gave me knowledge, and it gave me things that I can work on and help other humans with. I wouldn't change my story, but I would just maybe tone down the internal yelling a little bit.
Got it. I love it. We're both on the self-compassion bandwagon. I'm a big fan of it. I need it. I like every day. It's like my medicine. Every morning I start with self-compassion practice. It's the only way that I kind of get through it. I think you might have answered this other question already, but I want to just get it from your lips. If you didn't happen to take this path as a physician and take this route, where else would you might be now, if you were not to have taken that route?
I deeply believe that I would have found my way to some form of coaching.
Yep.
Whether it's high performance, whether it's just so fascinating. How can we, and this is my flavor of this, how can we find that we're enough on the same length of being self-compassionate and feeling whole and complete and not broken, and yet excel to our beyond our limits, whether that's physically or mentally. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, we take our broken selves and keep going and join all the rest of our broken humanity and join together to try to be a little bit more interdependent instead of independent. I love that. You were a coach when you were 13. So that was your original occupation and profession. Just happened to add on a few other things along the way. Wow, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your multifaceted life to share your story and some of your wisdom with us. So, now tell us all how we get in touch with you if we want to benefit from this amazing wisdom.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I hang out on LinkedIn with my first and last name. Please come find me. Moderate presence on Instagram as well. So dr.amnashabbir. And my website is also dr.amnashabbir.com. There is free resources over there. I have a separate page for free resources for early career clinicians. You're welcome to check those out. I do want to put a plug for Dr. Lorna Brain Heroes Foundation. I personally believe in their mission, and they do such great work for healthcare worker, mental health advocacy. Any shape or form that you can support them, please go on their website. It would mean a lot to me, and I'm right here for anybody who wants to connect.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Amna Shabbir, for joining me and joining all of us today on Beyond the Finish Line. I really appreciate that, and I wish you all the best in all of your endeavors, and to those amazing young girls who benefit from your wisdom also.
Thank you, Dr. Sherman.
All right. Thank you all so much. And we will join you all for our next episode of Beyond the Finish Line, the journey beyond residency. And thank you all for joining us. And please take care of yourselves with self-compassion.